First thing I want to talk about this week is exciting stuff that we have coming out for Blueprint. I feel like we don't talk about it enough. There's so much cool stuff we're doing, and I feel like we're very gentle here on the podcast about how much we promote Blueprint, especially the pro community. I want to talk to you about the traffic projection tool. So I've been using this for quite a while. I should have probably looked up how long I've been using it, but it is, in my opinion, the best sales tool, and also the best, not just sales tool in terms of closing new business, but also re-engaging cold leads. It does everything really well. It's a way I've built relationships with people where it's hey, we might not even work together, but I'd love to put this together for you just to help you with road mapping your business. Just so hey, what the next 12 months could look like. And what I'm excited about, and I'd love for you to talk more about, is how we've really gone from Google Sheets, which was basically software, right? There was a million tabs and all of this stuff that was above my pay grade because I kept breaking it, into actual software.
Yeah, so we developed, David and I, who's a partner at the Blueprint Training, probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. We just kind of came up with this concept of it's just a forecast, just an SEO forecast. There's some other tools that kind of do it, but there was really nothing that was able to just really from a sales scope be what can I expect as a result from working with you? It's the number one question that you get asked when you're selling really any service, but especially SEO, because it can take so long. The results are unpredictable. We wanted to build something based on tangible data that anyone of any level could understand. So we set out to build this thing. It pulled in a bunch of different data from a couple different sources. And as you said, it was very complicated. It took upwards of an hour to set up. Then you have to clean the data, etc. So we built the training around it, put it inside the Blueprint Training. Anyone who's a Blueprint member, you'll still have lifetime access to the Sheets version. But when you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 of these per month, the amount of time that we were wasting on it was just absurd. So we contracted out a dev shop, and they basically turned it into a piece of software that we can now do what was taking 2 hours in literally 2 minutes. That's not an exaggeration at all. So it's the exact same functionality, cleaned up significantly in terms of usability, in terms of speed. The reports are much cleaner, more visual. And now we've got a whole roadmap too going through this process too. We're starting to integrate ChatGPT to cluster topics, build forecasts based on clusters. Going to start throwing in paid search data just to become a general kind of forecasting tool. Also looking at doing some stuff with more localized searches. So really excited, man, this is the first official piece of software. I've built some software before in the past, but this is the first official piece of software that I built and used it, and where I'm really excited about it, not just for Blueprint members, but opening it up to the general market. Again, we see it as a sales tool in the ability to anchor pricing against expected results. Could also be a client delivery tool, which we're working on potentially building out as well, basically taking the forecast and then pushing it into a project plan or a keyword map, something like that. But as you said, the use cases are kind of endless, but especially on the sales side. It just becomes something that if you're selling SEO, it's kind of a no-brainer because it's so simple, it's so easy, relatively affordable to use to get these forecasts done. And really, you just shouldn't send out a proposal or a pitch without it. It's also incredibly effective on live proposals, running people through the data, through the keywords, getting buy-in, essentially just removing an objection up front, which is A, pricing objections, B, results objectives, and C, just kind of is SEO a good fit for me now? And on top of that too, we also use it as a lead gen magnet, right? We stopped with the whole free proposal, get a proposal, and now we're why don't we run this extra valuable report for you? And it's just helped us book a lot more phone calls. So it's exciting to see how the community is using, and it's live. It's at trafficprojection.com. Definitely check it out.
I can't overstate how impactful it is, because I think we all learned a lot of marketing agencies don't realize they're selling problems instead of selling solutions, right? They go into a proposal and they're hey, I found 10 things wrong with your website. And you go through arduously, and it makes you look smart, but it just also makes the lead, the person you want to work with, makes them feel like shit for 30 minutes. They're oh my God, everything's wrong and broken, and they kind of feel bad. And then you're now I would like you to pay me money to fix all these things. And it's it always just felt it worked. We all did it for a long time, but I don't do that anymore. I would rather, also that took so long. You were basically doing the work, an audit ahead of time. unpaid in the hopes they would pay you. I didn't love selling that way, and I love selling this way because I am selling a better future. I am selling an outcome, a new opportunity. All of those things are well-known sales tactics. And the other thing, Ryan, that I love is it finally like visualizes the value. SEO has been so hand-wavy for so long, or marketing in general, right? Like you said, you're looking at merging in like paid and other things too. If you're a web design shop and you listen to this and you're in web design or anything else, like putting a traffic projection into your web design proposals with like an added SEO retainer or sprints or however you want to market it, you'll close. I mean, I couldn't even imagine how many more web design proposals you'd close if you were like, oh, this is also going to do up and to the right. And the way I phrase it, I'll give people a tip if you are running the traffic projection tool. The way I like to phrase it, I'm very loose with it, probably because I speak with a lot of confidence. But I'm like, look, whether we work together or not, this is something valuable for you internally at your company. So everybody else you're talking to, I want you in your head, and I always say that you should be talking to a bunch of different vendors. You should be talking to a bunch of people. If you're not, I'd recommend it. But you should be benchmarking what they say against this. And that line and that piece changes everything because now we're not selling a commodity anymore, right?
100%. I was actually on a podcast before this too, and I went off on just kind of a full tangent about how the industry needs to come to terms with the fact that SEO is just not as impactful as it once was on so many different levels. It's not as wanted as it once was. It's not as desired. And people always point to the Google Trends chart where they're like, look, people are still like, there's still a huge demand for SEO because more people are searching Google for it. And it's like, yeah, but if you really break down who is probably searching for that, it's probably people who are building their first website, starting their first business, because it's so accessible now and so easy for anyone to start their own e-commerce shop. And what's the first thing they think? Oh, well, like, what if I ranked it in Google? So they're looking for SEO. So it's not that SEO in itself is a dying service per se, or a dying trend, or any of the above. It's the impact of it is dwindling. It's diminishing because of all the things that are happening within search, the additional competition, the fact that there's only a certain number of real estate within Google search. And now you're throwing on all these other people that are looking up SEO. Like, it's just, there's other avenues that businesses have now that's not 10 years ago, where it's like you build a website, you do SEO, you do paid search, and you build some social media profiles. Like, there's so much more that you can do now that has businesses questioning, and rightfully so, as you should too. Like, is this probably the best way for me to invest my money right now? So this tool allows you to answer that question, and it allows you to showcase the impact of what search can do. And sometimes, as you said too, it's like, sometimes it's not a good fit. I've run this for leads and prospects that it's like
vetting, right? Like,
it's like, okay, well, actually,
you shouldn't work together, and then you can be the person to explain that.
100%. And it saves you a ton of time too, because as you said, you don't have to go through the whole proposal process, the whole pitch process. We run it, our process is simple. We bring them in, and this tool now allows me to run it on the call as well. So I'll set it up and run it on the call for them, or 5 minutes ahead of time. And I come prepared, ready to talk to it and get them excited about something. And if it's looks like a good fit, then they have data to bypass the objection up front on the first call, not at the end of the process where you're probably getting ghosted, where you send a proposal and they see that and they get sticker shock, or they see the proposal and like, damn, I'm not going to pay $5,000 a month for what? Like, I don't know what this is going to do. So it's a whole process that you can build around this very simple tool. It doesn't have to be the tool too. It could be the free version. It's just this concept of forecasting, this concept of showing what they're going to get before they put $1 into it. It makes sales so much easier. Like, the average close rate, I think, is around 20% for SEO deals. That's really low. Yeah. And it's because of the lack of the awareness throughout the sales process of just being like, here's an SEO service, here's problems, here's shit that you don't want to have to deal with that is stacking up on top of you. Because to your point, right, you go through and you identify 10 issues. Oh, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken. If I'm seeing that and you don't show any sort of forecast or projection on what the return on investment is, I'm going to be like, well, we made it this far and we're fine. Like, I'm not going to spend 7, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand or whatever to fix these things because you haven't proven me your value. You're just piling stuff on top of me that, like, you know, perfect example.
A stack of TPS reports on their desk.
Yeah, it's like you take your car. It's like if you take your car to the mechanic and you go in for an oil change and they're like, "Oh, this is broken." You're like, "I don't know, dude. I've been driving for 100,000 miles. It's been fine. Like, I don't like. Are you really going to pay?" You know, it's the same type of thing. Like, people don't want to pay for that.
We found this log in your filter, and you're like,
"Yeah,
no, you didn't."
Home services, same thing. They come in and they find stuff that you're like, "I don't know, man. It's been operating fine since then." So like, you're not excited to pay for it, right? But It's this conversation of taking an expense and turning it into an investment, right? Instead of something that just costs money that nobody wants to pay for versus putting money into something that's going to return. People get excited about investments. It's like when you watch Wolf of Wall Street and they're pitching this garbage stuff and he's talking about the sales process, psychology of how like when people see the expected return, they're happy to put up the money for it. It's just a very small, simple thing. Like the tool is super simple too. It's not complicated at all. But it's this concept that's been lost in this industry forever that we're trying to bring light to with a very simple solution for it. So